great show for you today. We're going to be talking with the local band, Tony Dant.
Just gotta try to get away sometime. Escape from the scene. Things aren't like yesterday. Come back to me. My fantasy. Will your love set me free? I want your love. I just wanna get next to you. If it's a dream, you better not wake me up. Taking your love, just a matter of a dream come true. Come back to me. My fantasy. Will your love set me free?
Welcome, Tony Dant. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, what I'd like to ask you is, what would you define your genre of music as?
Blues rock, rhythm and blues. It spans a lot of music, everywhere from jazz fusion to Celtic music. I've probably recorded well over 500 songs in my collection that reaches everything from world music to rhythm and blues. But my main thing really is rhythm and blues, and that really brought me back to really kind of re-falling in love with the guitar again. So pretty much R&B, I'd have to say. People like Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Frank Zappa, another Baltimore native who I'm a big fan of. I actually did a Zappa tribute band with my daughter playing his music. But rhythm and blues, pretty much.
And how many years have you been in this industry?
About 42 years. I've been playing since I was 8 years old. I started in elementary school as a drummer. I had a fond liking for the Rolling Stones. And, became a drummer and was the first kid in my neighborhood to play all the local teen clubs. And then when I was 14, my mom had to sign for me so that I wouldn't drink beer and play in the bands that we played locally, because the people that I played with were adults. And I was a mere 15-year-old kid with a mustache. And I got to play a lot of really...
Yeah, they go to too.
No, I didn't have that back then. It was, I did have 5 o'clock shadow at 15 years old. Yeah, I played locally in the Washington area, and then got turned on to Baltimore. And then in the 90s, we played actually right on Calvert Street. There was a club many, many years ago called The Rage that featured original music, and I had the opportunity to play there and sing there and play my music as strictly a lead singer. One thing you have to understand about me is I'm a drummer, I'm a pianist. I was the lead singer of the band, the lead guitarist of my group. And so I've kind of done it all. I think I tease my friends when I talk about classic rock, and I say everything that's been done on Led Zeppelin now, as far as performing their music. I've sung it, I've played the bass on it, I've played the drums on it, and I've played the guitar on it. So it's been interesting.
Can you tell us about your new website and your newest album?
My website is TonyDantMusic.com. My previous CD was basically, it's called Tiny World. It features a lot of rhythm and blues music. A real mix. Some of it's kind of right on the edge of whether it's socially acceptable or not, but that's a whole other thing. The second CD is going to be called Mojo, and I wrote this song. It's really kind of about me and rock and roll. But the second CD is going to touch on the rhythm and blues that I did then, plus with a whole bunch of experimental stuff that I'm doing as well. And I'm probably not going to play all the instruments on this next CD. I think I'm going to have my friends help me out a little bit here. So I'm looking to re-release Tiny World in 2 months, It's available on CD Baby, and it's on Amazon.com, and it is also on iTunes. So, and it's called Tiny World. I understand we have a mutual friend. And who would that be?
Marilyn Manson, of course.
Marilyn Manson. I'm a Marilyn Manson fan. You would never know it to hear my music and hear some of the music that I play, especially when we listen to classical music or Edgar Varese or some strange thing, but I love Marilyn Manson. I saw him in concert, and I got a real kick out of singing Twiggy with him, and it was probably one of the last performances and tours that Twiggy did. I'm thinking.
No, Twiggy's back with him.
Great,
they
great.
In 2009 together for the High End of Love concert.
That's good to hear because he was a real lifeblood to Marilyn. I think they really connected so well. I think that they really had something going. It's good to see them back together.
Yeah.
So where is Marilyn performing? Anywhere locally here in Baltimore?
Well, they are getting ready to go back on tour. Either starting in the summer or the fall. I'm not sure if they're starting nationally or overseas, but they are working on their next album, which they are describing as leaning towards the sounds of mechanical animals. So they're going back in that direction.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, they should.
Fantastic.
I think their fan base really exploded around that period, so it's a smart thing to do.
I hear that you recently saw them yourself with your daughter, but other than the love of my life, Marilyn Manson, who are some of your other influences?
The Rolling Stones, definitely Frank Zappa. I like classical music. I like John Coltrane. I like Django Reinhardt. You know who that is? He was a gypsy jazz player. I like so much music. It's so hard to really pinpoint what I do because if you were to come to my studio and I was to sit down and play you, give you an idea of what I write, you would be very, very confused because I pretty much like to do everything.
Yeah. Speaking of gypsy guitar, any flamenco influences like Robbie Krieger of the Doors?
No, and that's an interesting question because I've met Robbie on several occasions, and Robbie is actually, I would have to say, a friend of a friend, more or less. But I have met Robbie and attended some of his concerts, and Robbie's done some real nice things for me. And Robbie's a great, giving me free tickets to concerts and introduced me to all these great jazz people. And I got to meet Mitch Mitchell of the Jimi Hendrix Band, and that was great to meet him because Mitch had passed away a year after the Jimi Hendrix Experience tour, which featured Jimi's music. So thank you, Robbie, for doing that for me.
All right, well, we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll have more with Tony Dant.
Thank you.
I almost thought you were the one. Guess it's time for you to run. When the sun goes down, the nights they seem so long. I wish that I could sleep and dream that you loved me, you loved me. I wish I meant more to you. You'll always know my heart was true. When the sun goes down, the nights they
influence, and with us again is Tony Dant. Now I understand that you compose music as well.
I do. I write everything from pop music to jazz music. I've written little sound bites and commercials for different people and jingles and things like that. I've wrote a catalog of contemporary country music, which was interesting. But I really try to stick to my roots more than anything. I've also done island music. I've done metal. My background, funny enough to hear me play, is really metal. It's completely metal. That's what I played for years. So some of my earliest influences would probably be like Judas Priest, the early Scorpions, and the heavier it was, the more I liked it. but I expanded into all kinds of different musics, and my favorite musician in the whole wide world is Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
And always will be. So that's
the name of his movie, 100 Motels, right?
Yeah, 100 Motels was one of his movies.
It's hard to understand that.
It's pretty off the wall. He was not only a world-class musician and songwriter, he also wrote orchestras and did a lot of really important things. But yeah, he was also a filmmaker.
Now, as far as any of your touring experiences, do you have any favorite stories you want to share with us about that?
Yeah, I went on tour with the band. I was in Canada once doing this tour, and my friends had called me 10 minutes before they had to go on tour, and I was due to be married the next month. And I did continue to get married. No longer, but that was many years ago. But anyways, so I went and I told my wife-to-be, I'm going to go on tour with the band. I'm going to leave in 10 minutes, and what do you think about that? She said, go for it. So of course, when we got into Canada and we did our first interview, the interview was focused around me because I decided to go do this tour in 10 minutes, and I learned all the drumming. I wrote out everything and played on the seats until we could do our first sound check to assure these gentlemen I could pull this off. This is drumming, by the way. Mm-hmm. So they were a little disturbed by the fact that the interview was focused around me and how quickly I jumped into this thing. But it all turned out really well, and it was a really good tour. I met a lot of very, very nice people.
So tell us a little bit more about your band members.
My band members are a longtime music veteran, Glenn Michaud, who I have a connection with from my old neighborhood. I used to play and play music with his little brothers, and they would say, our bass player Glenn is on tour, and he's a professional musician. And I never met Glenn, but Glenn came and auditioned for me, and I told him this story, and we have this connection. And then Kyle just joined us actually a few weeks ago. And,
what's Kyle's last name?
Kyle Dietz and Glenn Michaud. And they both joined me in what we call the Tony Dant Band for some reason. And these guys have been very, very enthused about playing my music, and I've gotten a real kick out of bringing them into my studio. I have a 24-track studio in Annapolis that I operate. It's a full-fledged, full-service recording studio. It's a Pro Tools studio with Apple computers and all that neat stuff. But my bandmates, I never cease to amaze them when I play them some song, and I'll play it, and they'll go, who is this? And I'm like, well, who do you think? It's always, always surprising with something new and exciting. Even if it's something I did 20 years ago and recorded. I had this heavy metal album, and I played them a couple cuts, and they couldn't believe that was me singing. But that's not what I do now. But I'm working on a whole hard rock album.
Oh, great!
A whole CD that'll lean more toward crunchy rock.
Can't wait to hear
and it's going to be called Red Saint.
Red Saint.
The Red Saint, and there's a whole story in the background. And I'm going to probably, you'll know I did this, but this is going to be like a ghostwriter kind of thing. It's going to contain influences from Marilyn. From Judas Priest, early Judas Priest, Dokken.
Ooh, Dokken. Tooth and Nail.
Tooth and Nail. I used to sing that song. I did. But many of those heavier groups from that era will show influence on this next CD.
Great. Well, thank you, Tony, for joining us tonight on After Midnight. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with us?
Well, I'd like to thank you for having me, and listen to my music and play my music and enjoy my music, and I'll enjoy yours. Thank you.